everyone, I'm Janine Malone.
And I'm Kristen Ciccolini.
And you're listening to It's Just a Phase. Each week, we'll bring you inspiring and informative conversations about honoring the different cycles of life, covering topics of health and wellness, moon phases, astrology, witchcraft, feminism, and more, so you can superpower your well-being and live your best life.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you there?
I'm here. How are ya?
Good. I'm in need of some self-care. How about you?
Yes, always.
Well, it's a good thing because that's our topic this week.
I'm so excited.
Yes, we're going to be talking about self-care for cycles, and you're going to get a ton of ideas to feel amazing.
Hell yes. And that's all we want for you. We just want you to
Yeah.
feel, we want you to rest because you're the best.
I love it. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about that before we get to the cosmic update?
Oh no. Although I am ready to dive into self-care, but they'll get a lot of it today. So
This week, in your cosmic update, it's the last quarter moon in Gemini on September 10th. And it's a great week to stay focused on what you need to do, what you need to say, what you need to feel, all of those things that you need to do to feel supported and cared for. And last week we talked about how the full moon was kind of an emotional ending. So maybe during that time you had some realizations about what needed to be let go. And if you haven't done it already, now's the time to do the official clean out. So, get what you need to say off your chest, allow yourself to actually feel your feelings, and then move forward because you'll have more clarity.
yes, cut those cords.
Yes.
With this being our last long weekend of summer, I guess, now it's coming to a close by the time you're listening. We do need a little bit of support as we begin this seasonal transition. So take the time you need to set boundaries, engage in a little self care. Plenty of ideas about that today. Yeah, say what you need to say to tie up any of those loose ends. Obviously, we're going to be talking all about self care. So if you've been feeling uninspired or unsure of what you can do to really nourish yourself, there are plenty of ideas coming your way. And I think it's important if you're listening to this the day the episode dropped, it's important to acknowledge that it's Labor Day. Hopefully, you're getting some rest and relaxation on this 3-day weekend. It's the unofficial end to summer, but it's actually a lot more meaningful than that. So, we wanted to talk about the history of Labor Day.
Yes. So, in the spirit of self care for our waning moon, it's important to remember that Labor Day is celebrated to honor the working man. So, marking the riots, marches, protests of the late 1880s, fighting for safer working conditions and more just payment during the Industrial Revolution. It began as a strike and it grew to a nationwide protest. I believe the first nationwide protest, which the president at the time, President Cleveland, he sent troops to break up the protests, and protesters were jailed. They were hurt. They were killed, which is unfortunately a familiar scenario today. So the president made Labor Day a national holiday to put an end to that dissent, which is an empty gesture, as we all know. And we still have a really long way to go towards equity in the workplace.
And at the moment of recording, we're watching companies like Uber refuse to treat their drivers as employees, brands like The Wing, who are built on kind of being feminist in look and feel, being shown as continuing to perpetuate oppressive, racist, and patriarchal values behind the scenes. We have companies like Everlane and the like firing members of their union, and continued wage disparity across the nation, especially for women of color. For reference, for every dollar a white man is paid, Black women make 62 cents to the dollar, Native American women make 57 cents to the dollar, and Latinx women make 55 cents. It's a really important time to remember that, yeah, it's nice if we have the privilege to take a paid long weekend, have our barbecue or whatever else, socially distanced, please, and to enjoy that time off and remember the people who fought for, you know, the recognition of an equal workplace and that holding your employers to task about equity and wage disparity is a great way to honor the roots of this. Let's put holiday in quotations.
Yes.
um,
Tell everyone what your salary is.
yeah, support your local unions. We were just saying before recording, I'm like, post your salary on the internet. Like, do whatever you can to advocate for yourself and those who have less privilege than you to, yeah, get get what they deserve. That is a form of self-care to me.
Yes.
But in addition to that, this week in alignment with our waning moon, we, as we said, are going to talk all about self-care. So we've touched on a lot of these topics, but we know sometimes it can be a little bit hard to figure out exactly where you are and what you need because, as you've probably seen through our episode so far, like we're all in different phases all the time. So, kind of the hope of this episode is to help you identify what phase of self care could be helpful depending on how you're feeling. Kind of, I don't want to say the symptoms, but I know for me, and Kristen, I'd be interested to hear for you, like when I am in a moment where I really, really need a little bit of nourishment and, self appreciation and self care, it can be really hard for me to like decide what I need.
Hmm.
And so hopefully this episode helps with that. Do you ever feel
Yeah,
like that?
definitely. Yeah. And especially when you're in the midst of it, it can be really hard to know how to make yourself feel better. So it's good to have a handy little list here. So take notes or look at the show notes. Um, but yeah, so we wanted to share a little bit about like different types of feelings that you might be having and what kind of self-care would be a good solution for that. So, not a bath doesn't solve everything,
Correct.
as much as we'd like it to. Not every form of self-care is good for every feeling that you need to care for. So,
Right. Totally.
yeah. So we'll start with if you're feeling burnt out, if you can't shut off, if you feel like you're treading water, those kind of feelings. The solution that we have for you is to rest and reflect. So that is the energy of Earth, winter, new moon, the menstrual phase, all of these energies that we've been talking about. The way to embody that energy in self care is Janine.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, like thinking about the opposite of what you need, I kind of think of this self care for cycles sometimes as like the color wheel, like the things that are directly opposed are like good partners, orange and purple or red and blue, I think it is, whatever. So, when you're feeling really burnt out, you're kind of feeling that fiery can't can't stop energy. Your goal is really to incorporate some like dreaming, some visualization, some recuperation. So things like unplugging, grounding meditations, reading for pleasure, napping, praying, whatever feels like it gives you a sense of spaciousness and an invitation to slow down is key. For me, I'm a huge salt bath person. Like when I'm feeling, especially a need to unplug, I kind of have to put myself in or around water so that I can't look at my devices. But yeah, I find salt baths to be super, super helpful. It's just a nice time to kind of like, salt is really grounding and to just take some time to like breathe really deeply, be where I am, and you know, when you're in the bath, you can't really do much else. So that's helpful to me.
And if you do have your phone, have some rice handy too, just in case you
Yeah,
drop it.
exactly.
Yeah, the way I like to go about it, if I feel this way, if I feel that burnout is kind of structured unplugging. So I think I said this on the last episode, but I've been doing a morning routine without my phone. So, running a business, you can't always turn off your phone and like completely unplug. So just having set times where you turn things off and you actually leave them in another room and just setting an intention and consciously choosing when you engage digitally and focusing instead, like every choice you make, like how does it support your end goal? I mean, not everything has to be in support of a certain goal. Like sometimes you just want to lay on the couch and watch trashy TV, and that's okay. But also sometimes if you're feeling a little like you can't shut off and like you're just glued to the TV, maybe you start thinking about what you could be doing with that time instead and consciously make decisions that support that. So just using that extra time for your own needs, being alone with your thoughts, which is a scary thing to do sometimes. Not taking your phone to the toilet, not multitasking. So yeah, that's like the way I like to go about it sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Like, and the thing that comes to mind just like over and over for me is that feeling of spaciousness. Like when you're feeling a little bit trapped or just kind of in this rut or like you don't have an opportunity to stop. Um, it can be really, really helpful to just like do things that give you some sense of like not disconnection completely, but I like what you said about just like using it intentionally. Going on a little walk, taking a salt bath, taking a nap, whatever can give you kind of give you a reminder or like some perspective that like you don't have to be running 100 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah,
Whatever that is for you.
yeah.
um, which can be really hard in this day and age. um, so the next one is one I am all too familiar with. If you're feeling kind of like indecisive, if you're having spiraling thoughts, or a lot of like negative self talk, basically what you want to be reaching for is this air energy. So, as we've talked about, air is associated with spring, with the waxing moon, with the follicular phase. And I kind of like to say that you're really trying to like initiate and set intentions around like to direct some of that energy because it can kind of feel like it's in a whirlpool, right? Like all there's a lot happening, but it's not really going anywhere. So, yeah, what's our goal when we're feeling like that, Kristen?
We want some movement. We want things that make us feel like we're expanding, like we're blossoming.
Yeah.
Things like journaling, taking a long walk, discussing ideas with someone outside of your head, setting boundaries, those kinds of things that can take you, take that spiraling or take those spiraling thoughts to a calmer place.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel like recently, especially, I've recognized how powerful it is to just like talk things through. Even if we think what like we're mulling something over in our heads and that's the same thing as talking through it with someone, it is totally not, at least for me. So I definitely do a lot of journaling. I also think like therapy is perfect for this kind of energy, having thoughtful conversations with, your trusted friends and family members of just like, hey, this is kind of something I'm mulling over. Can I talk through it with you? I like to say and set the boundary of like, I'm actually not asking for feedback, if you're not,
Mm,
because it's our nature to want to help someone along as they're processing something. And I find that to kind of like just add more noise. So I would encourage if that's something if talking through things is helpful for you, kind of setting that boundary of like I really want to talk through this, but I actually am not looking for advice. I just need, someone to kind of bear witness to where I'm at. That changes the dynamic of the conversation and makes it feel really helpful.
yeah, for sure. And I think that especially, I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording, but being at home, I mean, you and I are always working from home, so we're not in an office
Right.
bouncing ideas off of people, and that can take us to a deep place inside of our heads. But also, with everyone still working from home, a lot of people aren't even going back into the office until January. So if you have something going on there, like your work friends aren't around, you're not around people all day, like feel start to feel okay reaching out to people to talk and have those conversations that you need to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with journaling. We love a journal here.
Yes.
But one thing I like to do, especially with the spiraling thoughts, with all like the negative self-talk, just thinking through, just writing down all of the terrible things that you're saying to yourself,
Yeah.
which can like as you're writing, sometimes it can feel a little ridiculous, especially thinking of it like you would never say those things to a friend. You would never say it to your partner. Would you ever say it to your mom? Like, think of those things too. But
Mm.
also, what would happen if those things were true? Like, just start thinking through things like that. What if that horrible opinion that you have about yourself, or that horrible thing that could happen if you do this thing, what if that were true? You know? And then start thinking, what steps would you take if that happened? So, if this horrible thing happened, what would you do to correct it? So, it's kind of like that air waxing moon energy, having a plan so
Mm.
that if those things did happen, you know what to do. And as you start to think through it, you realize like, okay, this is kind of a ridiculous thought.
Yeah.
But if what if, there's always that what if. Now you know what to do. And then also on the flip side, you can think of what's the best thing that could happen if those things were not true.
Yeah.
It's all about finding what your fear is telling you. And you can also, if you're not a journal person, just again talk to someone who's not living inside your head. It
Right.
can be really helpful to have someone who's unbiased and has a more rational view of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard something I, on a podcast. I think it was the Camille Nanjiani and his wife, their podcast that they were doing at the beginning of quarantine. And his wife is either used to be, or I don't know if she still practices, but she was a therapist, and she was kind of saying like you really can also just like schedule like 10 to 15 minutes of like feeling as bad and as anxious and as like engaging with that emotion in a very like in a specific period of time, and like really letting yourself go there. And she's like, you'd be amazed at how quickly like that feeling becomes like you get sick of feeling it.
Hmm.
Like if you're kind of like in this like feeling dread or anxiety or fear, like if you really give yourself, okay, I'm going to set the clock for 10 minutes and I am going to deep dive into like why I feel like this. It's like at the end you've kind of gotten it out in a weird way. Like
Yeah,
what
it's like putting holding a mirror up to it kind of.
yeah, cuz like when you're spiraling, you're also simultaneously, at least for me, like you're trying to repress those feelings. So like they're coming up and you're kind of like, whack-a-moling them back into their like hellhole. And so it's like that makes the feeling so much worse because it feels like something's lurking. But when you give yourself permission to just like really give it space and like feel the feeling, it it doesn't take a long time for us to kind of uh detangle those
This
things.
this just kind of made me think of a few months ago. I was out to eat with friends, and they have a 3-year-old, and he was in a mood, and he was like screaming and just like how kids behave.
Sure.
But also there was a child at the next table that was like screaming even louder, and it was so funny for him to just to watch him see that, and his reaction to her screaming was like, "Dude, stop." Like just the look of it, like he kind of realized how ridiculous it was,
Oh my
and
god,
then
that's
and then he
amazing.
stopped.
He's like, "Listen, you sound like a loon."
Yeah. It was really funny to see that, but it's kind of like the same concept of like holding that mirror up to yourself and realizing, okay, maybe these things aren't very rational, you know?
Yeah, just like let yourself have the good old I always think like I mean leave it to a cancer to be like one of the most iconic crying scenes of any movie ever is Diane Keaton in what is it? It's not as good as it gets. Something's Gotta Give. When
I
she's just
haven't
like
seen
straight
that.
up. Oh my God. I mean, if
Is that the one
anyone,
with Jack Nicholson?
yes.
Okay.
And she just like, there's this montage of her just like bawling her eyes out. But it's just like, like sometimes it just feels really good to like have that moment of like really dramatic
Hmm.
speak. Same thing. Let's think about Paul Rudd in Wet Hot American Summer when he has to pick up all of those plates off the
That's
floor.
like my favorite GIF.
Yes, me too. And it's like, I just think that when we actually give ourselves permission to look at something, it's really not as scary. And so whether that's talking or journaling, if you're feeling that kind of spiraling, not sure how to get out of this pattern feeling, the best thing you can do is start to process and really look at it.
Yeah, and I think imposter syndrome kind of is in this arena.
Mm.
Um, and one thing that I like for that is to find expanders. So that's like a word used in, manifestation, which is a little problematic, but I do like the concept of it. It's just people who have what you want, people who show you what's possible. So when you are feeling like, oh, I could never have that, that I can't have it because all of these reasons, but you find people who, maybe come from similar backgrounds or, there's something in them that you see and that you want and something that shows you it's possible to have. And, we're talking about expansion here and it feels when you feel that possibility, it feels really good. So it could be friends, family, any random person that you follow on Instagram, TV characters, whatever it is, doesn't even have to be real. So as long as you like start to feel that possibility for yourself, it can help you kind of get yourself out of that imposter syndrome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, really does. Like, I think that it's yeah, it's a thin line for me between expander versus like if I'm already feeling imposter syndrome, looking at people
Mm,
who have things that I don't have makes me feel like absolute shit.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
but I
that's
do
where, oh, go ahead.
oh no, it just I totally understand what you mean though in terms of like recognizing I do think sometimes part of imposter syndrome is like this thing is impossible,
Hmm.
and I think that that can be super helpful.
Yeah, and I think going back to journaling when you feel that way can be helpful. So writing down like, okay, why can't you have these things? If it's making you feel like shit, why do you feel like you can't have those things? And start to think about whether
Totally.
the reasons you can't have those things are actually true. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So it's just a way to step back from those spiraling thoughts and really think about whether what you're telling yourself is actually based in reality or not.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
So, aside from those fun feelings, if you're feeling maybe disconnected from your body, if you're feeling isolated, uninspired, the thing that we want to aim for is fire energy, summer, full moon, that ovulatory phase when you're feeling really bold. We want to connect and create.
Yes, please. This is when we're doing embodiment, collaboration, pleasure, things like having orgasms, breath work, hosting a dinner party, candle magic, anything that's kind of like just feels like really good, just like permission to feel good.
Yeah.
And, when I'm in this sort of disconnected cycle, I need, like, again, as little screen time as possible. So I actually just like to go for like trying something new. There's something about like the process of learning that really reconnects me with like, yeah, just like it seems kind of silly to be like, oh, reading a new book connects me with my body, but like there's something about reading something for the first time that makes me feel really present. And for me, that's really important when I'm feeling disconnected. And also just like gives you a new lens to look at something. So I can cook something new, start a new book, starting a new like craft project. I've been very into embroidery lately, a new workout, honestly, even just like a path, like a new drive to somewhere you go frequently. Like sometimes I try to like figure out if I can get to the grocery store cutting through a neighborhood I don't know, like just to kind of like switch things up. There's something to me that like when I'm feeling disconnected, I very much feel like I'm in a rut. Like that's what that signals to me. I've been feeling a lot of ruts in 2020, so I think that there's kind of a lot of ways and to get a refresh by just like taking an approach to something new. Obviously I'm not gonna lie, like sex is a great way to help this as well.
Cosign that.
Yeah, like I just was like thinking about it. I'm like, is this crazy to say? But it also seems prude not to. Like the best way to feel connected with your body is to have sex with yourself or someone you love or
Well,
don't
that
love.
goes in line with the yeah. That goes in line with the ovulation phase when your libido is at its highest. So
Yes,
perfect.
exactly.
And also, it's a time, I mean, the full moon time, ovulation, it's when you're feeling like really bold and when you are feeling
Mm,
confident. So for me, I think it's when you're feeling that disconnection, I think it's good to spend time with people who allow you to be that bold, authentic self.
totally.
And if you don't have those people, like, think about what can you do to create that feeling for yourself where you're really just doing what you want to, you know? And if you don't know what makes you feel authentic or feel like you're really living out like what's inside of you, just do things that speak to you, you know? Think about all of the things that kind of light you up and maybe things that you're kind of afraid to do. Um and like just do it, you know? Like maybe like even it could be something as little as like maybe you don't wear a lot of makeup, but you love people who wear really bold lipstick and you're like, I can't do that. I could never, you know, just fucking do it. Wear some leopard print, put on bright red lipstick, just do it.
Hell yeah.
And I read this thing the other day. It said clarity comes from engagement, not thought. And I think that applies. It was more towards like business goals, but also it comes from anything, you know, like you won't know if you really like something or if something feels really true to you unless you actually do it. Like you can just think about it all you want, but you won't know unless you try it. So,
Yeah.
Nike, just do it.
Yeah, I say that to clients all the time. Like, action leads to clarity. Like, you're
Yeah.
never, ever, you just like can't know because everything that we create and do is like in some way, I feel like in relationship with either another person or, you know, clients or customers or people we're in relationship with or just like our environment. And like, you just aren't going to know how those things react until they react.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, fire energy, you can use that. Candle magic can be really great if you're looking for some inspiration, some creativity, if you're feeling uninspired. Also, just stop trying so hard could be an option. If you are feeling that like lack of inspiration, a lot of the time things come through when we stop thinking about them so much. And you know, the type of fire energy where you're spiraling a little bit and that you start to become disconnected from yourself because you're so focused on everything else.
Mhm.
It can be really fast paced, so that's like the shadow side of it, is letting it get out of control, you know, with the isolation, negative feelings, disconnection. So to try and avoid that, just try to be mindful of what's happening in that fast pace. You know, you don't want to lose yourself. So be mindful.
Yeah.
Stop trying so hard. Do some candle magic. Put on some lipstick. Get weird.
Yes. Yeah. I think that that's like, yeah, I think that that's a great way to look at it is like giving yourself like something, I don't know, just like in the here and now. And I think that's what I always think of with candle magic, even though I don't use it super frequently. But like even just the idea of like lighting a candle to like, I don't know, just kind of like show that like shift or something like how much impact a little thing can make, like having a candle lit and like all of a sudden your office smells beautiful, or
Mm.
like putting on a pair of earrings and being like, oh my god, I put in effort today, I feel so good. Like it's kind of amazing, I think, the simple things that can kind of snap us back to like where we are now.
Try to put a candle out with your fingers. That'll really connect you back to your body real quick.
Oh my god, I like can't. I would never. I know that sounds stupid, but I grew up with a firefighter as a
I was
dad,
just
so I'm
kidding.
like
Don't really
deep.
do that.
No, I know, but I'm like so but like you know how people will do that? They'll like lick their
Yeah,
fingers
I've
and
done
then
it, but I'm not good at it, so I stopped. I'll just hurt myself.
I'm not good at it. AKA I burnt myself.
I'm not quick enough.
Oh my god, that was amazing. No, but like yeah, anyways, I'm a real freak about fire safety. The coolest thing I've ever said on this podcast.
Hey, we've seen what it can do.
Yeah, I'm so true. Anyways, and then lastly, if you're feeling like you can't hear yourself, if you're kind of feeling overwhelmed, if your attention feels scattered, you kind of can't focus, there we kind of like to lean on the water energy of self-care. So this is our fall, our waning moon, our luteal phase. This is where we're kind of like realigning and kind of analyzing to get back into a more natural flow.
Yes, I was gonna say flow. I love that word, period wise, and also also just
Flow.
having flow in life is really good. So to achieve that, we want to do some clearing, accessing our intuition. Transforming is a good keyword. So think things like cleaning
Mhm.
your space, taking care of any lingering tasks, any loose ends that you need to tie up, meditating, doing shadow work can also be really helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I think that like this is definitely when I'm feeling that way where I reach for my tarot deck the most for myself. I obviously use tarot a lot in like my business and as a reflective tool, but when I really need it personally is when I'm feeling like I don't know what I think or what I'm feeling. Like I can't put a name to it. So even just the process of like taking some deep breaths, shuffling the cards, calling in my guides, like asking a question is kind of exactly what I need. And then, of course, obviously, seeing the reflection from the cards helps me get clear, or like it just helps me kind of like take a different angle to look at whatever's coming up. And that is so helpful to me. Um, it's why I think tarot is such a powerful tool because you're able to kind of again, like think about it as a mirror. It's showing you something that may be blocked if you're just like thinking about it in your own brain, but getting to like really sit with the cards that came up and what they represent and sort of how I can, look at what I'm dealing with through that lens always leads me to clarity. And that's kind of like my honestly how I got into reading tarot in the first place was like really feeling like that. I don't know I can't hear myself feeling pretty regularly. Um, and so intuitive practices, I think, are really helpful, which I think people can be intimidated by. Like if they can't even hear their rational thoughts, like I get a lot of like, well, what would make me think that I can hear my intuition? But I think that's where those kind of tools, like an oracle deck, a tarot deck, the Akashic records, any of those kind of things can feel really, really supportive.
Yeah, definitely. And that's how I like to use tarot too, is trying to understand different perspectives, whether it's like reaffirming my own perspective or if it's asking me to look at something from a different way. And if I do look at it from a different way, like how I feel about that, it
Mm-hmm.
gives more clarity and it gives a little bit of guidance. And even if you don't know how to read the cards, you still have thoughts about what you're seeing, right? So even if you
Oh,
don't know
totally.
like what different symbols mean, like everyone reads a different way, but yeah, even if you don't know that stuff, even if you can't access your Akashic records, but you're trying and sitting there and things are coming to you, pay attention to what those things are. You don't have to be like a seasoned witch. Yeah.
Agreed.
For myself personally, what I like to do when I'm feeling that like overwhelm and um, that can't hear yourself kind of stuff, I like to use flower essence. So I bought this
Mm.
essence when I went to Nashville, I think a year or so ago, and I really liked it because it was Narcissus flower essence. The woman who makes it, her company's I think it's Romani Botanicals. Romani. I'll put it in the show notes. It's a great one, but it helps my mind slow down and focus, and I like to use it when I know that I need to maybe like a day when I have to focus and do a lot of writing or stuff like that. So I'm not distracted and my mind isn't in all these
Mm.
different places. Um, Also, Catherine from Laurel Tree Healing Arts, Salem, woman-owned business. She has this really great essence called "Hey, You're Okay." You know about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's made with calendula, lavender, rose, and rose quartz essence. There's more to it, but I think those are like the main things. But it's kind of more of a self-love essence, and I like to use it when I'm feeling that like buzzing, like where you really
Yeah.
can't turn anything off because it feels supportive. It's just like, hey, like relax. It's okay. Calm down. Like
Yes.
come back down to earth. Let me hold you.
Yeah, like so
Yes,
nurturing.
yes, that's a perfect word for it. It feels really good. But aside from flower essences, if you don't have access to those things, you can work with plants that are known as nervines. And these are things that help support your nervous system and help calm you down, help stop you from having that buzzing energy. So a few of the more accessible ones would be lemon balm. I believe you can find this easily as a tea at the grocery store if you have a
Hmm.
grocery store with a decent tea section. But lemon balm's good for tension and anxiety, also for digestive issues related to that anxiety and stress and overwhelm. And the flavor is just really nice. I like that one a lot. Lavender as well. I mean, everyone knows like the calming properties of lavender. You could have it as a tea. It's a little like floral tea can has a tendency to like veer over into that soapy territory.
Yeah.
I like floral, so it's fine for me, but some people don't. So if you're going to use lavender, like it could be good in a herbal tea blend, or if you have like an essential oil, you can use that for like aromatherapy, which can be really nice to have around you. And then simple garden sage can be really great too. So sage is really good for like type A people who are just always overloaded, overwhelmed. I have to do everything right now.
Hmm.
And it's really simple. You can just make a tea out of it. So if you grow some or if you have a friend who grows fresh sage, you could use the dried sage as well. But um, it'll taste really nice. It'll calm you down and you'll feel good. That's just what we want you
Love
to
that.
do. Feel good.
Just calm down, feel good.
Yeah, chill out, dude.
Yeah. Ugh, chill out is the vibe. Well, I hope that I mean, I think that we gave y'all a lot of ideas, but we'd love to hear if there's anything that, this conversation kind of triggered for you in terms of like ways that you support yourself or ideas that you can better support yourself in the future. If you are feeling some type of way, we want to hear it and we want to be able to even offer some support of like other ideas if you need them. You can always email us at itsjustaphasepod@gmail.com. Tell us or tag us in your little beautiful self-care photos on Instagram at It's Just a Phase Pod. And if you liked what you heard today, and we would love for you to leave us a review on iTunes. It helps people like you find our show, which we love. We love you. We hope you're taking good care of yourself.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.